Hi, I'm Kimberley Flood, founder of Access LNC Australia. Do you want to know how the health system really operates? The best way to get the answer is to consult with a registered nurse. Once upon a time, nurses used to be seen as the doctor's handmaidens, but now nurses are so much more. We are university-trained, critical thinking professionals. We collaborate with all health disciplines. We research and develop health policy and models of care. We often sit in high-level management positions, all while having our patients as our main priority. Us nurses, we're in the know. And this is why when it comes to medical negligence claims, you need to get a nurse on your side. A legal nurse consultant is a registered nurse who uses their expertise as a healthcare provider and often specialised training to consult on medical-related legal cases. We help to bridge the gaps in a lawyer's knowledge. While lawyers are experts on legal issues, legal nurse consultants are experts on nursing and the healthcare system. We can screen cases for merit, conduct literature searches, review medical records, identify standards of care, prepare reports, and act as an expert witness. This is a relatively new field of nursing, firstly being recognised in America in 1989 and still to be widely adopted here in Australia. Do you find the review of medical records arduous, time-consuming, and often incorrectly done? Sure that there is more to the case than meets the eye, but having a hard time revealing the secret? Has healthcare gone wrong, but you're finding it difficult to pinpoint the real issues? Do you want to know the secrets behind nursing standards of care and health system policy? Maybe it's time to think about utilising a legal nurse consultant to help you find the facts and move through your cases. While working as a patient safety and clinical quality manager, the majority of my role was to team lead investigations where patients experienced serious harm or death. For one of these patients, I was asked to assist the Crown Solicitor to review their transcriptions of the retrieval audio records for an upcoming coronial inquest. The audio files were a few hours long and had conversations between 3 different retrieval services across 3 states and 2 different hospitals. Completely shocked to find that the majority of the transcript was incorrect. I spent hours correcting all the errors before submitting this back to the solicitor. This case in particular got me thinking, how many hours of work had an individual put into this, only for the majority of it to be wrong? If the work had been used in its original form, what impact would this have made on the coronial inquest? And finally, wouldn't it have been easier and quicker if I had originally been tasked to complete the transcription? If the Crown Solicitor's Office was having difficulties in compiling an accurate and meaningful chronology, what about all the other firms specialising in personal injury, particularly those working with medical negligence? I've seen the damage to individuals and families. I've been the one sitting on the other side of the table, apologising to them on behalf of the health service for what they experienced and explaining how it all happened. I've assisted in the development and implementation of recommendations formulated after serious incidents to prevent them from happening again. And while an apology is a start, and recommendations hopefully prevent this from happening to another family, it doesn't do much to assist with the disability and expenses that remain with these people after the event. I wanted to be able to help lawyers working in the personal injury space to make sure that they have all the right information to make a good decision on whether a claim is meritorious and to assist in gaining the best possible outcome for their clients, to ensure that they have the best chance to continue on with life and make their future challenges just that bit easier. The solution? A business created by an experienced registered nurse to help personal injury lawyers get the information they need. Already a number of firms across the country have benefited from engaging the services of Access LNC Australia. The primary requests received over the past 12 months has been to assist in condensing down large volumes of medical records. One case in particular had spanned over 5 years, and we make it a much more manageable chronology for lawyers to handle. Even though the primary request has been to create a chronology, we have been able to identify potential issues. For example, the initial management and escalation of a deteriorating patient. I started this business in March 2020, not really knowing what to expect, particularly with a pandemic knocking on our doorstep. Over the past almost 12 months, I've been working hard on building Access LNC Australia and working hard for my clients. During my 13 years working within New South Wales Health, I have been on various state committees and working groups, including the Morbidity and Mortality Working Group, statewide development of a standardised cardiac pathway, Rural ICU State Planning Group, Rural Emergency Critical Care Planning Group, and Rural Critical Care Task Force Committee. With my background in critical care nursing, rural and remote nursing, clinical governance, and nursing education, I have a solid clinical foundation to provide valuable insight and assistance to my clients. Looking to the future, I would love to be able to expand this business to include registered nurses whose specialties include midwifery, mental health, aged care, and paediatrics.
All right, Kimberley, thank you so much for that presentation. I'd never actually heard of a legal nurse consultant until we started working together, but as I understand it, and from what you've just spoken about, it does seem that they are more well-known and more recognised and widely understood across America than they are here in Australia. So it's great to see this profession and someone like yourself emerging, particularly in the context of our medico legal community in Australia. So got a few questions I'd like to just go through with you now, if that's all right. First of all, what sort of cases do legal nurse consultants like yourself typically get involved in?
So I've primarily been involved in medical negligence cases, all sorts of different ones at the moment. So I've been working with medical cases where there's been a patient fall and have injury from a fall. I've been working in cases where patients might have deteriorated after a surgery and they've represented to the hospital with complications from that surgery. So it's a couple of examples of what I've been involved in, and in particular doing chronologies and condensing all that information down so that it's more manageable to be able to be used by the lawyers. But the benefit though is that I know exactly what I'm looking at. So even though I've been asked to do the chronology, I've also been able to feed back to the lawyers who have engaged with me to say, hey, have you noticed this, or have you thought about, or would this impact at all, so that they can have a little bit more information to proceed with the case that they have with their clients.
It's really interesting to hear that kind of alternative contribution as well. And you kind of think it makes complete sense of why hasn't it happened before. But just to build on that point and that question, I guess, so beyond the kinds of legal cases, what sort of clients do you with Access LNC work with? And who have you worked with? What do they say about you, and what do they say about working with a legal nurse consultant so far?
So I've worked with some small boutique firms, and I've also worked with some larger firms as well to assist them. They still seem to have the same problems as each other, despite the difference in sizes. One word recently that I have been described by a lawyer is being persistent. And I think that's really important, to be persistent, because you really need that persistence to dig down and keep going and find those keys to unlock the secrets of what's happening in that healthcare record.
Yeah, I think it's a good word for nurses generally anyway. I think you have to be, don't you? So, okay, so in terms of the understanding as well, your business and what you do, so why is the practical health background and that experience that you have so important for this? And why do you think it gives some of these solicitors and personal injury lawyers in particular a bit of an edge in their cases?
So I find medical officers are great, and they're really good with the physical aspect, with that clinical side. What nurses bring though is we collaborate across all health disciplines. So we're talking to allied health, and we're talking to pharmacy, the doctors. We're often involved in developing policy and new models of care. So quite often when an incident occurs, particularly in a hospital, it's not usually just because of that illness that they have. It's a wide variety of issues which has contributed to that incident happening. So nurses know how the hospitals run and what is supposed to happen. So it's not just about, did the patient have a fall and there was a puddle of water? You also need to look at things like, was the staffing ratio correct? Or if the patient was confused, did they have the right level of nurse taking care of that patient? Just a couple of examples of things that medical officers engaged in these sorts of cases wouldn't really have a good understanding and probably wouldn't consider, which could give our lawyers the edge in their cases.
It really is that kind of inside scoop you were talking about on point as well, isn't it? So, okay, my final question to you. Like we said at the start, it doesn't, and like I confess, I hadn't heard that much about legal nurse consultants and how broadly they're used internationally as well compared to here. So how are they being used by the legal profession in Australia? And, what are the experiences? Are they being more widely used in the US or Europe or other parts of the world that you're aware of?
So when I first started out in this field, I'd hoped that maybe someone else had their own business and I could sort of jump on with them and work for someone. And I really couldn't find anybody doing this kind of work. There are a few nursing experts around that do provide expert witness statements or present in court, particularly with coronial inquests. But helping firms out in particular, I haven't really been able to come across anyone. So I started my own business. I know that in America, it's very big. They've got their own nursing association for legal nurse consultants, and there's quite a few educational courses that they have there and certification for legal nurse consultants. The same sort of thing is taking off in the UK, and it's also starting to develop in Italy as well. So I kind of feel like we follow America a little bit. So it seems like a bit of a natural flow that we're starting to move across to having this type of nursing field in Australia.
Well, it will be really interesting to see how your business takes off in the next few months and years as well, and how this new role and this kind of relatively new concept takes off in Australia. So thank you so much, Kimberley, for sharing some information that I hadn't had before and that I wasn't aware of, and giving me something to think about. We'll look forward to seeing you at the Medico Legal Congress in a couple of weeks' time.
No worries. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking.